Who's ready to keep going with Countdown to Christmas crafts? Today I'm showing a few of my mistakes and hopefully you can learn from these mistakes. I know not everyone likes to sew or is capable of sewing, but the project that I'm working on today is super fun and easily made with a group. So if you don't sew and you know someone who does sew, perhaps you could do the stamping or you could stamp together and then they could sew it up. But some of the mistakes I made today, I hope that you don't make as you're making your countdown to Christmas crafts. I started this project with this pillow, which I purchased for $1 at the thrift store. And after stamping and sewing, this is what I came out with. So today I'm going to show you all the steps I took to get there. The first thing I did is I have a whole bunch of these actually. They are placemats and they're made out of a really nice heavy canvas. And I thought it would be perfect. I could just put some stamping on it and then I can sew two together. And I would have a pillow that was sort of like a lumbar pillow. It would be 18 by 12. And that's fine for a lumbar pillow. As you can see, I really try to push that ink into the fabric, but alas, it came out too light. So I put it right over it because I could see there was still a little ink on the stamp and really tried to push the rest of the ink in, but it was still too light. Okay, let's put a mask on it and let's try another stamp and see how that comes out. So I'm taking the next biggest stamp from the um, Winter Forest stamp collection from IOD, and I'm trying that one and seeing how that comes out. And that one came out very, very light too. I had two problems. My fabric was too textured and my ink pad was too dry. I still had some really smooth muslin and also some sheeting from my last project, so I decided I would use that. The stamps from the Winter Forest are very intricate, flocked pine trees, and they're absolutely beautiful. And I wanted to make sure that I could really see the details on them on my pillow. And in the beginning, I wasn't sure exactly what I was making, but as I started stamping the trees, different sizes, different ones, I came up with the idea I'm going to make a patchwork pillow with the winter forest trees stamped in all different colors and all different sizes all around it. So I went back to that big one and I stamped it with another color green, and again I wasn't happy with the color, so I had mixed some ink in the ink bottles previously and decided it's time to really put a little more ink on some of my ink pads. So I went ahead and did that. And then I'm going to do the tricky thing of stamping over that image. So when you do that, you need to be really careful. And I don't try to get every single little detail when I'm matching it up. I get the top and the bottom and the two sides, and the rest of it is already there. So I'm carefully going to lay it down, press that ink into the fabric. I really want it pressed in. And voila, it came out beautiful. I am super happy with that tree. The Winter Forest tree stamp has 7 different trees, and they look like they may all be different kinds, but they're definitely different shapes and they're different sizes, and they look wonderful when you stamp them on fabric and you put them all together. I used several different color inks of green that I had mixed together, some that I had mixed just mixing them without having a formula, and a couple I did have a formula for. But I continued to use the muslin, the really smooth muslin that I had, and also some sheeting. So you can see the sheeting and the muslin are two different colors, but it just added to that patchwork feel when it was all finished. So I stamp them and then I cut them out. And then what I have to do is I have to fit them together to fit on my main piece of fabric where I am going to sew them all to the back, to the front of it. Anytime I stamped an image on the muslin and it didn't come out bright enough or dark enough or deep colored enough, I went ahead and re-stamped it. And I really loved this green blue. It really made it look like a blue spruce tree. So it was a great, kind of like a contrast to the rest of the greens. I try to keep the pieces of fabric as square and as straight as I possibly can so that when I sew them together, they will be straight. It didn't work out perfectly though, but it was okay. I had to piece them together to make the size that I wanted. Now, what I am using is a piece of super heavy linen that again was way too textured. I tried to use it on stamping, but it was just way too textured to give you a good image. So I'm going to be sewing all of these pieces together and then I am going to sew them, top stitch them on top of that heavy linen. So I keep stamping smaller pieces and medium-sized pieces, and then these five little trees all on one piece so that I know I will have enough pieces to cut out and fit over that bigger lumbar pillow. Now that pillow is cut 13 by 21, so its finished size will be 12 by 20. If you look at the bottom of that fabric, you can see that hem. So these are recycled old sheets that are 100% cotton and they are white. There were no stains on them, so I could go ahead and just cut them out and use them for stamping. The sheeting makes a really nice clear image. This fabric, again, this has been around for a while, and so these are super, super smooth at this point. Now you can see in this photo, you could see the background piece of fabric. That is going to be the size that I need to sew these pieces of fabric together to get that size. So it took me a while to figure out which one I was going to put where, which one I could shorten a little bit, how I could get them all on that piece of fabric and still have it look not quite laid out perfectly. I wanted it to be a little bit, just look a little bit more like an old patchwork. And here are the strips all sewn together and they're pinned to that background piece. And I am going to now top stitch all of them. And I top stitched every one of them around all four sides. I apologize for having such a complicated project to work on. And I'm sure I've lost most of you, but those of you who really like to stamp on fabric, you could stamp these designs and use them for anything. The next thing I did is added a fringe to around the edge, and then I put a zipper in the bottom so that I would be able to put my pillow in, turn it right side out after I've sewn it up, and then I've got to pull all of that trim. That trim has a lead edge, which you go ahead and pull to make the ribbon really be fluffy. Pulled it all out. And once it was all pulled out and fluffed up, I stuffed my pillow, and there it is, all done.